All right, guys, we should be live now. What's up? Hopefully, everybody had a wonderful night last night. We're going to do a members only type of video, free to the public. And it's simply just going to cover the Thursday night, Friday night slate. I know some of you guys are playing showdowns and stuff like that. There's a bunch out there. Obviously, the NBA season's really coming down to an end when it comes to a DFS perspective anyway. So we'll run through this bad boy quickly. If you don't mind clicking the thumbs up button, that would be wonderful. All right, so we'll start with tonight's game. Phoenix against the Clippers. I'm going to start with Phoenix because I'm going to tell you that, like, with Chris Paul coming back tonight, honestly, there isn't much I want from this team. I'll fully admit Jay Crowder and Miles Bridges are still, Mikal Bridges are still in play. I'd probably end up on Crowder this one because he's cheaper. But neither one of them is anywhere close to a must or anything like that. I want to say give Cam Johnson credit for playing a good couple of games. I don't really think his minutes dip with Chris Paul back. They probably stay about the same, maybe a little bit lower, but there's not a lot of room for growth here. This guy shot 10 of 13 the first two games. He's not a monster peripheral guy. He's a nice young player, but at 3,900, he's nowhere close to a must. If I'm going to roster anybody from Phoenix, it's Ayton. Why? Because his role doesn't change a lot with CP3 back. He might get a few less touches because there's less shots to go around. He might get easier buckets, though, too. He can definitely pick it up with blocks and steals. He's not a huge block or steal guy, but, there's room. He can get a couple of those. The rebounding numbers probably going to end up, between like the 9 and 14 range anyway. So I can get on board with DeAndre Ayton. I played him the first two times because just thought he made a lot of sense at his price tag. He's a little bit more pricey now, but he's still, quote unquote, in play. Especially with the center position not necessarily being quite as strong. So as far as Phoenix goes, that's it. Probably Ayton or bust, and I probably don't even end up there. As far as the Clippers go, I do expect the Clippers to put up a good fight tonight. Do they win the game? I don't know. Suns get Chris Paul back. They just have more going for them since Kawhi's not around. I give the Clippers, a real good opportunity. I think they're going to play real hard today, and a bunch of their guys I am interested. Let's start with Zubac. So I brought him up as a long shot the other day, but mentioned if he's starting, well, then he's clearly not really a long shot anymore. Not only did he start, he played 34 minutes. And they were right in that game, despite Kawhi Leonard not being there and everything like that. So assuming that he starts again today, I perfectly think he's fine for you at 4,200. Gives you a lower cost option. If he's not starting, I would run away quickly because what we've watched with the Clippers and Coach Lou, who should be commended for the job that he does, he makes really, really good in-series adjustments. They have a deep bench with the Clippers, so he plays what he thinks is going to work for him for that specific day, and he clearly likes what Zubac offers in this series so far. You could saw most of Zubac's first game minutes came in the second half as well. So he's clearly looking at having a big in here, and Zubac is his guy right now. So, but if he's not starting, I'd run away real quick because it's not 3,200 anymore. He's 4,200. So you do have to consider him as an option. But if he's starting, I'd probably just lock him in. As far as the rest of the Clippers go, so Pat Bev, I'm going to assume he was a big spark plug in this game, is going to play good minutes. He's quote unquote in play. The thing is, he just going to get into foul trouble probably because he's forced to guard Chris Paul and Devin Booker, which is just tough. He could have been called for a bunch of other fouls that last game. I'm sure you guys all saw that. He's not much of a shooter. I mean, if you need cheapness, I think I'd still rather go with Rondo, who's a better DFS player. But he did take a 5-minute loss to his what he had been playing in game one, mostly based on the fact they needed the defense of Pat Beverly. And while Rondo used to be an elite level defender, he's super, super old. He's just not as good as he once was. And I'd still play Rondo over him, but it gives me some cause for pause. The guy I want to talk about who has been making himself some real money over the past week is Reggie Jackson. So Reggie Jackson is playing for a contract in the offseason. He has been phenomenal. He's back at home now. This guy's got 33-plus points in 4 straight games, including a 54 spot against Utah. He's hit GPP value multiple times around. I'm buying what he is selling. He is aggressive and he is assertive right now. He's taken 15 plus shots in 4 games. The minutes are there. They need the offense. I'm in on Reggie Jackson. I can't believe it. I'm as stunned as everybody else. Like, when you look at Reggie Jackson at 6,300, never in your wildest dreams did you anticipate yourself playing him in the Western Conference Finals at 6,300. But here we are. We have to adjust to the information given to us, and I'm highly interested in Reggie Jackson. I'm also interested in Paul George, and this is coming from somebody who's been really, really hard on Paul George. He shot it pretty poorly last game. He only hit 1 3. I know we're making a lot of the free throws. And if you think he goes full on pandemic P here, like, I understand that. You think like he just chokes after being raked through the coals by the media the last couple of days. I get that. And I've been really hard on Paul George. But I don't think he's going to play poorly today. I think he's going to be assertive, aggressive, and I think he's going to play well. And I expect him to give you at least 50 today. So he is definitely on the short list as far as the studs go. I think I like Giannis more than him. Just more room for upside and stuff like that. But Paul George, like, I'm playing Paul George above Booker. No doubt about it. With Chris Paul back, like, easy. Not saying Book couldn't have a good game. You guys know I'm a huge Booker fan. But back in LA and everything like that, give me Paul George over him all day long. And then Luke Kennard, I think, kind of runs into that sleeper mold. We talked about a bunch of these guys on the Clippers, and they changed what they're doing. They obviously found something with him later down the stretch, and he played big minutes. Problem is, you never know if he goes back to being a DMP like he's been repeatedly. So he's a sleeper. I think there's room for upside here if they all of a sudden they decide they want to play him more minutes. There's also big-time room for zero, which just makes him super, super risky. And then Batum and Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris just isn't really that healthy, which is the problem. Probably not going to be for me. All right, move over to Atlanta. So Hawks take down my boys last night. And all the credit in the world goes to Trae Young. He was phenomenal in every sense of the word. Bucks still should have won that game. But what the Hawks did down the stretch, and they're really good in late games, they were awesome. I'm going to put a lot on Coach Budenholzer. There was, what you guys probably, if you watch the game closely, there was 2 terrible foul calls, and he didn't challenge either of them. Like, blatantly, Pat Connaughton with that block, he doesn't even touch Trae Young. You don't challenge that. Like, I ain't even mad at the referee. I'm mad at Coach Bud because that one was blatant, and that kind of changed the game. Also, Bucks, you were out rebounded down the stretch by John Collins and Clint Capella, so you kind of didn't deserve it. Credit to the Hawks in this one. Coach Bud missed 2 big-time easy challenges that I would hope any coach would challenge. So that's on him. And you were just out hustled, boys. Trae Young was amazing, but y'all were out hustled. They took him. You guys remember the play with like a minute or 2 to go, and they got 3 offensive rebounds and finally made it 3. I mean, that's it right there. That's just pure hustle. So, you know, you didn't deserve to win. Atlanta won that game. They deserved it and they earned it. So, as far as game 2 goes, clearly adjustments defensively need to be made to how you defend the pick and roll. So I didn't love Trae Young last night. I was wrong. He was amazing. One of the just an amazing game. Not like quite to the KD level from a couple of games ago, but that's Kevin Durant. You know, Kevin Durant's like almost a foot taller than Trae Young. There's a lot more that he can do. Trae was awesome. Do you go back to him? I don't hate going back to him, especially like if you want to play on tonight's game not being a game and you want to run Trae and Giannis. I get that. He ain't going to get 75 DK points again. Just not happening, right? Like, they're going to change the way they defended the pick and roll. Not saying that you can defend Trae on the pick and roll because he's really good on it, but he's not going to have this easy of a time. So I probably don't end up here. I do like Paul George and Giannis as the desperate behind teams. I think you guys remember game 1 against Philly. They took it. Didn't look nearly as good in game 2. So, but I mean, they proved me wrong over and over and over again. So could easily do it again. I'm not big on the rest of the Hawks guys in this one. Clint Capella was really, really good last night. A lot of rebounds. I expect better hustle and better rebounding out of the Bucks in game 2 because it's a big part of where they lost this game. usually Milwaukee wins the board advantage, and Clint Capella and the boys, they just out hustled them. That's just heart right there, and they had it, and the Bucks didn't. All right, so we come to Milwaukee. Giannis is a lock for me. There wasn't much they could do with him. He did typical Giannis stuff, 34 and 12, had a big assist night. The blocks and the steals were there. He's a lock for me. Down a game, get him in there. The guy that I'm wondering if he starts losing minutes because he was losing them the other day was Brook Lopez. I forget which former NBA player was talking about this going into this series, said that Brook Lopez might start losing run because of his inability to get up on Trae in this situation, so they might have to play smaller. The other side of that is maybe they realize they got out rebounded and he plays big minutes. I ain't playing him at 5,600, but the guy that I'm a little interested in, and I mentioned it in the video before the other one, was Bobby Portis. Could easily start seeing more run. You don't want to wear your guys out. They don't need to be. Brook didn't expose the advantage. The flip side of that is maybe you want to get Capella out of the lane. Either way, I think Portis is good for like 15 minutes and like about 15 points. Probably won't hit the 22, but I think he's good for about 15 and 15. That's just my guess. As far as the rest of the guys go, Chris Middleton was awful last night too. I mean, awful. 6 of 23, 0 of 9 from 3. That's just bad. For whatever reason it might be. He had a bunch of days off, so I'm not going to give him the tired excuse. He was just bad. The Bucks have shot it poorly in the opening game of both rounds. So, I don't know, man. I'm not overly concerned about the series yet, but I expect Chris Middleton to play a lot better in game 2. The problem is I popped this slate open thinking I was going to love Middleton, but dude's 9K. He is mucho dollars right here. Like, definitely give me Giannis. And then the guy who all of a sudden got his offensive confidence back and just exposed the Atlanta defense all game long was Jrue Holiday. So if I'm playing a cash game, I'm interested in Jrue Holiday. It was nice to see him shooting the ball better. He was very assertive and aggressive. And as great as Trae Young was last night, clearly, they struggled to defend Jrue Holiday with their backcourt. So I'm very interested in Jrue. I thought I'd want to flip the pivot right here, but too big of a price difference for me. You do have some shots like Bryn Forbes could get going, Pat Connaughton and stuff like that, but I did expect the rotation to get a little deeper after going really shallow the last couple games. You didn't expect to see PJ Tucker playing. Well, I take it back. He played the same number of minutes, but guys like Brook Lopez, for example. So I don't know. If I'm making a lineup, definitely give me Giannis. Probably give me like Zubac for sure. For me, the question is Paul George or Trae Young. And if I'm doing a multi-entry type of thing, I like the idea of Trae and Giannis together, stud versus stud, playing for this game to be competitive. But for me, that's the big question. Trae Young and Paul George. You got to like both of them. How can you not like Trae at least a little bit after last night? He was sensational. But I'm a Paul George hater, but I expect good stuff from him today. I think Rondo fits right here. Again, I don't feel great about it. If you feel better about Pat Bev, do your thing. Paul George in there. Small forward is weak, real weak. So if you like Middleton, you can roll with him there, but he's big money. Ugh. That is where decisions need to be made. I do not have a glowing recommendation at small forward. So this is where a guy like maybe PJ Tucker, just because he's cheap. And then maybe you can get your Jrue Holiday or Reggie Jackson. If I went with Portis here, I could get Jrue Holiday. So maybe something like that. Give or take. That's a little more Milwaukee than I want, though, personally. But they should play a lot better game, too. So, anyway, that's what we got for this one. I wish you all the best of luck.